Okay. Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm hopeful that my internet connection stays with us today because it's been giving me a little problems this morning. But so that's just a little fair warning in case I disappear. Um, Everybody I see here, I pretty much know. So I hope you know me too. But I'm Michelle, and I'm the facilitator this morning. And so I will start off with all of our housekeeping duties here. So, Eracism is a slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person to person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. I'm going to go over briefly kind of just the meeting format here, just so that we're clear on everything. Um, when you're not speaking, if you could please keep yourself on mute. And I will be keeping a list of those who would like to who would like to speak, and you'll have 2 minutes a person, and you need to raise one finger to get on the list, two fingers if you have a clarifying question. And again, I'm going to keep a list of all these people as I see them, and occasionally I will go over the list just to make sure I have everybody's names on them. If you want to also, you can also use your reaction button at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand, which I just did, and lower your hand if that's easier for you. I will try and keep my eye open for those as well as people's fingers. Um, if you have a clarifying question, as I said, you raise two fingers and wave it around as best you can. And that's if you would like to ask a question of the previous speaker, something that you did not understand about what they were talking about. This is a point to just ask a question. This is not a point to bring up your own opinions or say some sort of comment to the effect of an opinion. If you would like to do that, you need to get on the list with one finger, in which case you can do that at your next turn. So let's see. Anyway, I think that's, yeah, I think so. If anybody doesn't understand the clarifying questions, of course, please feel free to ask right now. But anyway, it's not a point for you to bring up your opinions or just to make a matter of fact statement of some sort. It's to ask a question of the previous speaker. I think that's it. Except I guess I'll read the land acknowledgement now too. So. And I have it as we acknowledge that we acknowledge that what we know as the United States is the traditional territory of indigenous peoples, and that there are many more nations and tribes that could be named. Members of our group today are on the lands of the Tonkawan, Lipan, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha and Choctaw in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, and the Chihuahua and Mojave in Riverside County, California. We would like to thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands 3 generations and hope that we can continue this stewardship in the future. So, I hope all of you had an opportunity to actually watch the 2-hour documentary of the Who We Are, Chronicle of Racism in America, that was basically narrated and put together by Jeffrey Robinson, the attorney. And if not, at least you got a chance to read the New York Times review of it and maybe watch the clip of his speech that he gave, or the talk that he gave in 2018. I believe in New York City, which was included with that article. And I watched this movie a couple of weeks ago, and it really struck me as a profound deep dive into some of the history of the United States, obviously, but also as a way of understanding where we are today with our relations amongst all of us as human beings in this country. And it was something that I really wanted to spread far and wide for people to watch. So I hope, as a consequence of watching this movie, those of you who did that, you also recommend it to other people to watch as well, because I think that's the whole main point of the movie, is that he really wanted to get this message out there. And basically, the only way those things kind of spread when they're not released in a major theater like most other Hollywood productions are, it's going to be word of mouth that gets things like this out there, and for other people for them to be seen and the message to get across. And I just really think it had a lot of wonderful information to share. That I think he said at the very beginning of the movie, he was struck back in, I think he said 2012, about how much he himself, as an educated Black man in America, did not understand about a lot of this stuff. And he wondered then, if he didn't understand it and he hadn't heard of much of it, like how many other people out there in the United States had not heard that. And that's exactly how I was feeling a couple of years ago when I started my journey of understanding on all this information as well. And it just has, for me, it has forced me to go out there and seek more information. I've read many books now, listened to many podcasts, and seen other movies that have really, and other programs on television. It's just, I just feel like I was done an injustice when I was a child in school and not understanding and learning this information. So I just think this is a very 2 hours of an encapsulated snippets of what we are missing in this country about understanding the issues behind racism in this country. So anyway, that's why I decided to bring that to all of our attention today. So I appreciate all of you who, took the time to watch the video. So with that, I guess I can open up the discussion. So anybody who wants to get on the list to talk today, please go ahead and raise your hand.
You have to have us introduce ourselves.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I got carried away. All right, so I will do that first. Sorry. And as I will do that on the order of the things on my screen here. So Phyllis, go ahead and you can introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Phyllis, and I'm in New Orleans, and I'm looking forward to discussing this documentary. This might be something that we could try with other documentaries going forward.
Thank you. Larry.
Good morning, I'm Larry. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Francie.
Hi, I'm in Austin, and I think I know everyone, and you all probably know me.
Thank you. Lynn.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Frank here in New Orleans. I feel like adult. I didn't realize it was available on Netflix until just a few minutes ago, but I will watch it after our meeting. I'm very, very interested. Just the first lines of the movie seem to answer perennial critiques of the discussion of racism. So if the first line is valuable, imagine that the whole movie will be fabulous. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Lynn. Stanton.
Good morning, Stanton, Austin, Texas.
Good morning. Thank you. Marion. Can't hear you, Marion.
Okay, I never hit that pad hard enough to unmute. So good morning again, everybody. I'm Marion Lagarde, here in the Gentilly neighborhood of New Orleans, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. It's good to see everybody this morning. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Marion. It's good to see you. Pedro.
Yeah, good morning. Hey, Michelle, thanks for your words this morning. I really concur with the idea of history being one thing, but what we learn about it being, kind of encapsulated in prejudice or whatever. But I also wanted to just say I'm here in Austin, and I'm going to have to actually leave in about 15 minutes, but I just wanted to pay my tribute to the group, and thanks for the topic. I look forward to watching the full video.
Thank you, Pedro. Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise in Austin. Been going to Erace for a couple of decades, over a couple of decades. And yeah, definitely looking forward to today. So first on the list, please.
Okay. Nora.
Morning, everybody. I'm here in Austin and looking forward to all your comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Nora. Marla.
Good morning, I'm Marla. I'm in Metairie, Louisiana, near New Orleans. Looking forward to today's discussion.
Good morning. Thank you, Marla. And Nancy.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Moore. I've been coming to Erace since 2007, and I am in the New Orleans area.
Thank you, Nancy. And Bill and Cindy.
I'm here finally, though you can't tell from the picture. I will make Bill take his machine to the fix-it store and get his camera fixed this week. Mine's got to go in too, so we're in trouble. Thank you. Look, this is quite an article.
Yeah, I'm Bill, and I want to just encourage Michelle. You said you read the list from time to time. When the list is long, it's very helpful so you can anticipate when you're up speaking, and so you'll be ready and prepared. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And I'll read the
By
list
the
from
way,
time to time.
as I said earlier, we watched the movie and found it very powerful.
Great. Well, thank you. Marva is next.
Good morning. My name is Marva, and I've been attending post-Katrina. I look forward to this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. Glenn.
Glenn Abdullah, I'm from New Orleans. Looking forward to the meeting.
Thanks, Glenn. And Greer. You there, Greer? Or somebody else there for?
No, I'm here.
For
Hold
Greer
on.
today. Okay, sorry.
My button got frozen. My name is Greer, and I've been attending Erace since post Katrina, I think around 2007, 2008. And I enjoy hearing everybody's opinion. We may not agree, but we all have something to say. That's it.
Thank you. That is so true. Okay, so now we are on to the list finally. I apologize again for getting the order of things wrong this morning. It's been a while since I facilitated. Let's see. So Louise was first on the list. I do have you first, Louise. Is anybody else who would like to get on the list before I let Louise go? Phyllis? Marion? Greer? Bill is, or Cindy. I'll put Bill, Cindy, and whoever wants at that point to go can. And if you both want to go, then I will just let you go off on that too. Okay. So Louise, Phyllis, Marion, Greer, Bill, Cindy. Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to start the timer here, Louise, and the floor will be yours.
Okay, well, this documentary movie, whatever, had been on our list of things for a long time, but of course we've got such a huge list, we never seem to get through it. So I'm glad you pushed me to watch it last weekend. And I started making notes, but I got through 2 pages before it was even like, I think 10 minutes in or something. So I'm like, okay, man, there is so much information and so much stuff I didn't know. So I don't know. I'll mention a couple of them, and then I guess I'll get put back on because there's just so much to talk about. I really did learn a lot. The Constitution, I think, was the biggest whack in the head for me. You know, I mean, this stuff is written into the Constitution. But I think to start off with, he was speaking to that flag holder, and how he kept his cool was amazing. He's a fantastic man, by the way. I've seen him in other stuff too, talking. And he explained it as he knows what he's saying. He knows what he's saying. It makes no sense, you know. Like this guy holding the you know, what's it, flag, Confederate flag.
Confederate.
But yeah, but he believes it so deeply that he is unwilling to let go of it. So they're just like completely brainwashed into this, you know, I know I'm talking crap, but I'm gonna keep saying it, you know. That's crazy. And I love the unconscious bias that we all have, you know, and it's completely without us thinking that we're mean, horrible people, or we're not mean, horrible people, but the unconscious bias is very deep. And I think that is a huge part of what we need to self-reflect on, for sure. One step there. And then I don't know how much more time I got, but the Constitution, I can you can put me back on, but there is stuff that I picked out that he was talking about what's in the Constitution. There you go. Yeah, put me back on, babe.
Whoops. Can people hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
I heard that. That was the alarm, right?
Hang on.
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Can you not hear yourself?
All right.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I had to change because my iPods are messing up my phone and my timer. So, okay. So, thank you, Louise. Did you hear the timer go off, by the way?
I did, but can you put me back on as well?
Yeah, I will put you back on. Okay.
And yeah, we could hear it. It's very nice.
Okay. Guess I can't do both. I can't have my computer and my iPod, my AirPods in. Anyway. Okay, so Phyllis is...
to do the timing, Michelle?
I mean, I got it now because I just took my AirPods out, so...
All right.
But Phyllis is next.
Okay. Well, I made some just bullet point notes of things that I thought I would want to discuss, and one of the first ones is that he, you know, he has that sort of hill with the ball rolling back frequently, and he talked about the difference between there being one identified leader nationally back in the day for civil rights, maybe two, and the difference now with the more decentralized leadership among younger activists. So there isn't just, if one person is lost to assassination or other death, the movement will keep going. And I have long thought that that is an important point in what is, you know, how the younger activists, like the three women who started Black Lives Matter, you know, I don't know if I can name all three of them at once. When I hear their names, I recognize who they are, but they're not up there being like, it's on us. There's leadership regionally, and if something happened to one or all of them, Black Lives Matter would keep going. And I think that's a really important change, and hopefully will prevent a backslide down the hill. Although lately it does seem like we're losing rights. So, do I have more time?
Yeah, 20 seconds.
Well, to go to the guy with the Confederate battle flag, I just thought, I don't know if this was said in the video, but that people like him are impervious to facts. And that doesn't just apply to people in terms of racism. It's many, many issues. Science, people who don't believe science, they're just impervious to facts. So I hear that, and I would like to get back on the list too.
Okay, I will put you on the list. Okay, next we have Marion.
Okay, I watched this documentary a couple of weeks ago as well, Michelle or Marla, whichever one of you ladies said you'd seen it before. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to watch it again. I appreciated Jeffrey Robinson's opening remarks. He asked the audience who owned slaves, and of course, nobody raised their hand. And then a little ways into the conversation, he said it's not our fault. And I thought about a well-known entertainer who's always in the news for making ridiculous comments. And he's a Black entertainer. And he said that it was the fault of the enslaved that they were in this predicament for 400 years. And I always get a little perturbed, and that's putting it mildly, when I see this man. And I think the media likes it because he makes these foolish, ridiculous remarks. But I found it so appalling that he said it was the fault of the enslaved. So when I'm having conversations sometimes with my family members, especially the two that live with me, I said, oh, so the Africans were standing on the Atlantic Ocean shore waving, please take me to North America and enslave me. So when this man said this not too long ago, I have to admit I was more than perturbed, and I said for him to get on television and make this foolish, ridiculous comment that it was the fault of the enslaved, it really irks you to the point almost of wanting to commit bodily harm to this person. But as I said, I think the media gets a kick out of him making these ridiculous, absurd remarks. So I'm glad Jeffrey Robinson pointed out at the beginning of his remarks that it wasn't the fault of the enslaved.
Thanks, Marion. Next on the list is Greer. And then after that is Bill and Cindy and Louise and Phyllis. Anybody else want to get on the list? Okay, so Greer, go ahead. I'm assuming you're having problems with your button again, Greer.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
This is what I don't understand. How can people feign ignorance in the age of modern technology? We basically walk around with computers in our pockets. They're called cell phones. And with all the knowledge out there that no one's keeping you from, you still want to say that people did this to themselves. You want to bask in the ignorance of what this country did and has an agenda against a certain group of people that's been in effect since day one. And these people who were enslaved per our legislative dictates, constitution, everything that makes this country what it is, where we were at the time when all that stuff was being written, how we were treated as chattel and property, not human beings, but people will bear ignorance that doesn't exist. People thought that it happened, and everything has changed now. But this group, all that to me doesn't make sense. People want to live in their little bubbles. They want to relish the ignorance that they live in, like the guy with the flag. He just basically said, oh, it's all great. They were family. Basically, I think it's collective insanity. White people have a collective insanity. I think their white privilege for them haven't out. So what they're trying to do is that I can't be best white person I can be, I can at least be better than black. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Greer. Next on the list is Bill or Cindy or Cindy.
Yeah, I'm going to speak now. The movie filled in a lot of facts for me. I had the big picture, but Jeffrey Robinson really articulated the big picture in a very helpful way. The parts about the Constitution, I knew before that the American Revolution was fought in part by some people to protect slavery. The American Revolution, not the Civil War. And the Southern states were looking very nervously at the abolitionist movement in England, and they were afraid the British Empire was going to prohibit slavery. So they agreed to join the North on the condition that slavery would be written into the Constitution. And the movie showed the specific places where it was written in the Constitution. So that was very useful. He's a very powerful speaker. And I like the way he's tied it in the end, he brought it into his own family and his own personal experience. And then he said, this is the point that struck me the most. 50 years ago, we thought we were making progress. And then we started backsliding with Nixon's war on drugs, Clinton's crime bill, and many other things, the MAGA people now. And so he said, 50 years from now, what will people be thinking about what we do today? And that's a big challenge for us. So I really got a lot from the movie. We'll probably watch it a second time. Oh, we're going to take the implicit bias test too. I looked it up. We didn't have time to do it before the meeting, but we're going to do it together afterwards. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. I think Glenn may have a clarifying question for you. Is that correct, Glenn?
Yes. So Bill, since the Constitution was, you believe is fraud, do you think that America deserves a second chance?
Well, I think the oppressed people deserve a second chance. People of color deserve a second chance. I hope that whites will take that second chance and act with honor rather than oppression. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. You can put me on the list.
Okay, will do, Glenn. So next I've got Louise and then Phyllis and then Glenn. Anybody else? Stanton. I see you. Larry? Anybody else? Okay. So Louise, you're up next again.
Well, there is so much, Michelle. It's really such a deep documentary that, and Phyllis, yeah, me too, was interested in that ball rolling frustration of getting to a certain point and then just going back to nowhere. And I love the fact also exactly what you said, that the new leaders hopefully are spread over different parts of the country, and to say that there's white backing as well. It's not just a black movement, it is a people movement for justice. I think this is a very important part of the new movement. I would like to think anyway. A couple more things about what he said, that the law picked a side. That was poignant, at one point in history, the law picked a side. Well, from the beginning, to be honest. And I also wrote down author of the Star Spangled Banner. Of course, I didn't back up any notes there, so I can't remember why he was, I'm guessing because he was a real slaveholding racist person, I'm guessing. Oh, and the fact that enslaved people were insured by Aetna and AIG. What? That was a big eye opener. Wow. So, oh, and I just loved the way he was so personable with people that he interviewed. That wonderful lady from the Tulsa massacre, the last surviving person. She was a lovely lady, and he was just so charming and patient with her. And I don't know, it's the humanity. It's so funny, actually. It was a dichotomy, right? The humanity and the disgusting inhumanity that we were watching unfold through the documentary. I thought was, took me to many emotional places. Yeah, that's it for now.
Thanks, Louise. Right on time. Let's see. So Phyllis is, I have next.
So I wanted to say something that I had never heard described or seen described before was the prepping of enslaved people prior to sales, and that they fattened them up and oiled them up and gave them nice looking clothes and whatever to sort of make them look more appealing to purchase. Just kind of all of that is horrifying. And like Louise said, the idea that they could, one, get life insurance policies on people that weren't even considered fully human. I don't believe you could get like life insurance on your livestock, maybe some other sort of insurance, but that was really disgusting. And if that's not an argument for reparations, I just don't know what is, because somebody else got money from your relative's death. And then the fact that when prior to actually the Emancipation Proclamation being released, there was compensation for slave owners for the losses that they were about to incur. And so that all of that just puts the lie to the fact that, people say that the Civil War wasn't about slavery. Of course, all of the states who seceded
Louise.
have those, their statements of why they seceded was so they could keep having slaves. And there's no way to separate having slaves from the economy, because they were, of course, tied. There's no way the South could have produced the products it produced without slave labor. They could have done some with just other white people working, but they couldn't have had such a massive impact on the economy of the whole country. And I think that was the music. So thanks.
Thanks, Phyllis. Next on the list is Glenn.
Yeah, I'm not going to judge America about its past. I'm judging it by where it is today, and where that I'm a citizen now of the United States. I got full rights as anybody else. And the problem with not making that kind of a statement, first of all, I think the intentions of the Constitution when it was wrote, they had the purity of intentions. Inalienable rights, that's God-given rights. And they knew that one day they were going to have to stop this slavery in the country. They even said it. Jefferson even said it, but they had become dependent upon it. So I don't judge. Say maybe some of you were racist before. I'm not going to judge you what you were. I'm judging you from where you are today. And some of the, and if you knew my past or where my thinking was, you can't. I wouldn't be talking about America like I am talking about the way when I was a young person, the way I thought. But this is where I am today. So that's the way I judge my country. And for those who keep trying to pump stuff into our heads that we are not, to not appreciate citizenship.
I see you, Marva.
You're hurting the African American when you make him not think that he is a citizen of the country. That's my point.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. I think you've got two clarifying questions here. The first one's from Marva, and the other one's from Louise. You're muted, Marva. There you go.
I'm not first because I recognize Louise as being the first.
Yeah, just making sure it's a question and don't give me no long.
It's okay, Marva. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Marva. I called you first. I'm the moderator.
I believe you said we have civil rights is equal to the white people. I beg to disagree, but I'm sure I heard you say that we have achieved equal right to the all people. I beg to disagree.
Well, the question is.
Yeah, is there a question?
The question
are you
is,
asking?
do you truly believe that you have equal rights in this country?
Yes, I do.
Is that correct?
Yes, I do believe that we have equal rights. We just don't exercise it like everybody else. Y'all wait until white folks build a subdivision, and then y'all want to go rush in there after they didn't build the subdivision. But you have the same right to build your own subdivision. You got the same rights to build your own intercity neighborhoods up. You have your own rights, as they have, to create businesses and create jobs for African Americans, but you don't exercise it. You are free to do all those things that make life worthwhile, but you don't do it. Because why? You don't have the willpower.
Okay, Louise, I guess you have a question clarifying.
That was the question. That was the same that Marva just asked, and he answered it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Marva. Thanks, Louise. Let's see. I'm gonna go down the list here real quick in case anybody wants to jump on. Oh, I see Bill. Cindy. I see your hand. And Phyllis. Anybody else? Okay, so the list is Stanton, Larry, Louise, Bill, Cindy, and Phyllis. So next up is Stanton. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is just kind of benign, but at the end of it, I was looking at the credits and I noticed the name of two women, Emily Kunstler and Sarah Kunstler. And I was curious as to whether or not they were related to William Kunstler. And it turns out they're both his daughters. And William Kunstler was a big hero of mine back in the 60s and 70s during the anti-war movement, and then with the Chicago 7. And he was a brilliant, brilliant lawyer. And I'm glad to see that his daughters are following in his footsteps. So I don't know if anybody else caught that, but that was just something that jumped out at me towards the end of the movie. Also, the movie itself just helps solidify the mechanics of institutional racism. And back to, something that Marion was saying, that, you couldn't just escape as a slave and start your life and be free and everything was going to be honky-dory, or you could just, walk out of your slave quarters and say, I demand my freedom and I'm walking away. um, the oppression of the institutions and of the constraints of society made it impossible. And so, yeah, when people say things like, well, why didn't, Black people rise up against the slaveholders earlier on? Yeah, there are instances of that. We saw how that turned out for most people who rose up against the system. I mean, obviously there were the Harriet Tubmans and there were people who were the abolitionists helping and struggling to get people to freedom, but the overall mechanics of society made it impossible.
Thanks, Stanton. Next on the list is Larry.
There's a passage in the Bible before God destroyed Israel for disobedience, where he sent the prophet Jeremiah to them. And the prophet told them, only acknowledge your transgressions. Only acknowledge your transgressions. And this has been part of the American system. America has refused to acknowledge its transgressions. In the beginning of that film, it was said that America was founded on, he either said racism or white supremacy. But yet somebody said that those who drafted the Constitution had purity of intentions. How can you have purity of intentions when your intentions were to enslave and to dominate another human being? That goes contrary to not only the laws of God, but just goes contrary to nature itself. And so if America was founded on racism and white supremacy, when did it end? When did it end? And how have some become so pacified to say that, I'm not going to hold responsible or accountable those who did those terrible things in the past? Sometimes when the children take on the attitude of their ancestors, then the system is allowed to continue. So what we're dealing with now is a system. Sometimes we're not dealing with individuals. We're dealing with a system. And the system has a way of pacifying some people into thinking that things have gotten better. That all you people got to do is go out and vote. Go out and vote. Voting is going to make a difference. Voting is the panacea that's going to change your whole life, your whole destiny. And we believe it. We've been brainwashed for the last 60 years. And so they got all of these get out the vote campaigns, and we're putting people in office. Sometimes it's the lesser of two evils. But we got to do our quote unquote civic duty and go to the polls and vote. And then never hold nobody accountable. And so we are where we are now. And people like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers.
You want to get back on the list, Larry?
Yeah.
Sorry, the timer went off.
I didn't hear it. Okay, thank you.
You want to get back on the list?
Yes.
Okay, I will put you on the list. And Nancy, did you want to get on the list? Okay.
You can put me on the list.
Okay, I'll put you back on the list, Glenn. Anybody else? Well, I've got to stop here. Okay, so next on the list is Louise.
Oh, I guess I'm just agreeing with Larry for starters that, yeah, it's ingrained, it's in the system, it's a virus that we need to, the whole system is broken and it needs to be completely restarted. I don't know. Everyone needs to watch this documentary. It should be mandatory in middle schools or high schools. You should have to watch this. I think it's a great education and it's a good all round, beginning to where we are now. And then it just made me think, when people made their wealth from the backs of slaves, enslaved Africans, that so much family wealth, so many rich people in America today, you know, wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for slavery. And I know that's like a duh kind of statement, but, you know, just think about it. There's just so many people, so many that are wealthy because of that, and in positions of power because of that, that have been down on in generations. And I don't know, Glenn, I'd love to pose a couple of more questions to you, because I don't know, I'd love to know really where you're coming from with that statement that you have the same rights as white people. You know, what redlining, you know, the glass ceiling, there's just so much that is obviously targeted to keep the Black man down. I don't understand. And I do understand that we've come far, for sure. We've come a distance, but I just need to understand why you believe that. Anyway, that's it. There's just so much, and it's so deep. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. Next on the list is Bill or Cindy or both.
I just want to, Cindy will speak soon, but.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to counter. I like Glenn's argument for self-determination, but the founding fathers did not have purity of intentions. And they started out that way, but as I said, the southern states were fighting to protect their slaves, not freedom from England. And at one point, I saw the HBO documentary, John Adams, which I highly recommend. And the Northern were crafting, trying to get everybody, all 13 colonies on board with a revolution. And the Southern Pinckney from South Carolina specifically went to John Adams and said, "We will only join the revolution if you protect slavery in the Constitution." So that was a explicit mention, concession to the slaveholders, that slavery was mentioned in the Constitution. That was explicit. There was no purity of intention whatsoever. And so that was America's original sin, along with genocide of indigenous people. But it was in the foundation. As Larry said, it's systematic. It was systematic to begin with. We need to undo that system, but I don't know whether it's going to happen in my lifetime. I hope it will happen someday. Oh, I do want to say one thing, if I have time. The movie Amazing Grace about the abolitionist movement in England has some things that were very true in America. The members of parliament, when they were voting.
You want to get back on the list, Bill? This is going to run long.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, I put you back on the list. Cindy, did Cindy want to speak?
No.
I was muted. You were muted.
Thank you. Later.
Okay. So next is Phyllis.
Well, I had a note that it didn't make sense to me until Glenn spoke. The difference between the law and living. And yeah, there might be laws in place that nominally give everyone in the country the same rights, but I don't think George Floyd would agree with that law helped him out in any way. I don't see any news reports of any cop leaning on the neck of a white man till he died, or little Black children being shot within moments of cops getting out of cars. I don't see that happening to white kids. White people children, male, female, no matter what you look like, you get the benefit of the doubt. Numerous videos of cops not doing to a white suspect what they have done to Black suspects. So yeah, the law might be in place, but the way it's playing out in lives doesn't hold up to that law. And until that happens, there isn't really quality. That's all.
Thanks, Phyllis. Next on the list is Larry. I see your finger, Stanton.
You know, I wonder if George Wallace, if he were living and Martin Luther King were locked up in a room and told you're not going to come out until you reach an agreement on how to solve America's race problems. I wonder if they could reach such an agreement. Because in order to reach an agreement on where we are now, there's got to be some give and some take. I think for those in the white system to be in total denial that nothing took place, Civil War wasn't about slavery.
Greer.
Also, those who are Black, who think that for the rest of America's history, we got to live in that situation instead of moving on. But sometimes you can't move on until there's a confession. And as long as there's not a confession and there's a denial, then it makes it difficult for compromise. I know a long time ago in racism, way back in the 90s, there was a discussion about this white woman down in St. Bernard Parish or Plaquemine somewhere who had used the term nigger towards one of her students. And you know, the call in the race meeting was for her to be fired. Well, I didn't take that position then. I took it as an opportunity to educate her. And when people, you know, use the term nigger, knowing it's going to be offensive, I pity them. You know, I pity them. Instead of demanding that something, you know, bad happened to them. They may have families and children, and to fire them may have consequences. So we have to learn how to be compassionate one towards the other, have to learn what true love really means. I mean, true love, what it really means. Love is sacrifice. Love is sacrifice. And I guess I heard the bell.
Thanks, Larry. Do you want to get back on the list?
If I have time, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we're getting low on time here, but I will put you on the list. Anybody else? Okay. Let's see. Next on the list is Nancy.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with what Larry had said previously about being brainwashed and you're thinking all you got to do is vote. Well, there's another brainwash out there that all you have to do is get an education. And if you get an education, then you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and everything will be fine. Well, that's not true. In a lot of cases, you can get an education, end up in debt, and nobody will give you a job. All right. I mean, you call it the glass ceiling, but there's another, the closed door in some professions that you may study and train for. It's very difficult to break into, and it's very difficult to get promoted. And if you do get into those professions, and the racism that and discrimination that you run into is very formidable and discouraging and whatnot. So that is also another myth in brainwashing to thinking that all people are created equal and have the same rights. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Nancy. So the list right now is Glenn, Bill, Stanton, Greer, and Larry. It's just one. I'm by my clock. It's 1 minute after 11. Maybe have chance for a couple more people to talk. Otherwise, I was going to close it. Does anybody else want to get on the list? Okay. So Glenn, you are next.
Yes, you got people who come here from Africa, and they are so happy to be here. You got people from India, got the same pigment skin that we have. The Africans look identical to us. You can't tell us apart from them. But they don't have the issues you have. They don't care if they can't get a job. They will make a job. They will make a business. They don't have the African American slave mentality. Still talk and think like a slave. You're so dependent on the white man. You pull yourself up on the white man's bootstrap. You're spending $1 trillion a year. Every other race in America is finding a way to get that money from you, coming in your neighborhood and creating businesses where you should be creating the businesses for yourself. Why aren't you creating the businesses? They know there's a gold mine in the African American neighborhood. We spend $1 trillion a year, but yet you sitting around in this horn of plenty, complaining that somebody is holding you down, somebody's holding you back. The redlining. You can have your own banks, but you think like a slave. You ain't got no willpower, and you need the white man as a crutch to keep on saying he's the reason you are suffering. Always looking for an excuse. My 2 minutes up?
Now you got about 20 seconds. I gave you a little extra time because I forgot to set the timer.
That's good. I'm good. Thank you.
You're good? Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. I think Phyllis has a clarifying question. Go ahead.
My question is, have you ever had your own business? And if not, why not?
Yes, I've had my own business.
Okay. Next on the list is Bill.
And Cindy's going to say something.
Okay, Bill and Cindy this time.
First.
Okay.
I want to follow up. First of all, I want to follow up with what Larry said, which is very important. The concept of truth and reconciliation. You can have reconciliation, but only after truth is acknowledged. And there's so many people, as we saw in the movie, who have no concept of admitting the truth. They don't even believe the truth. But anyway, so if we could ever get to the point of truth, then we can have reconciliation. I started to say before in the movie about the British abolitionist movement, at one point they were debating in Parliament a bill to abolish slavery. And they said that 80% of the UK economy at the time was bound up with slavery-related activities. A lot of it was cotton, but they were slave traders too. And the members of Parliament from port cities said, we think slavery is immoral, but if we pass this bill, it will cost a lot of jobs in our community, so we can't vote for it. So that was the compromise that was made. Once the system got started, it was people were hooked into it. we've talked about before, there was a New England village, Bristol, Rhode Island, that everyone in the village bought a share in a slave ship that was manufactured in the village. Everyone in the village bought a share in the slave ship. So the whole New England village was profiting from the slave trade. It's been, as Larry also said, it's so systematic. We see it everywhere. So I'm gonna yield the rest of, I yield the first 2 minutes to Cindy.
Hey, are we on? Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted
go ahead, Cindy.
to add, it's really just a magnification. What Glenn was saying certainly has truth, but it's not a blanket, everybody absolutely thinks like a slave or whatever. I think there are gradations of how dependent different groups of people, black, white, are on each other. In this city, in my neighborhood, there's a lot of interaction across races. I think that makes life easier for those who are involved. In some cities, there's no contact. That's a whole different place. I choose to live where there's mixture. I like it. So the accumulated wealth of the ruling class, the power class, mostly white, is one of the major factors. And it's the time that the same people have, the same families have invested. Bill spoke of Bristol, Rhode Island. I knew the town well, as I was married into a family that had connections there. Pervasive. They would say slavery's terrible. They won't have anything to do with it. But they funded it. They built the ships. They moved the bodies. Of course, they didn't know anything about that aspect of it, but they made the money from it. And the money is, then they chose to do what they wanted with it. And it probably had a little to do with making up for the process, the owning of the factories. It's a horrible process, and we have quite a history to answer for. I don't see easy solutions, but we need to work on it. Pick a side and take steps. Enough said.
Thanks, Cindy and Bill. Okay, so the last three on the list are Stanton, Greer, and Larry. So Stanton, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that theme of the living in the world. It's the internal and the external. And internally, there are people who might want me to think less of myself and would like to see me be a second-class citizen. And I don't feel that way about myself, nor do I buy into it for my own way of thinking. But I do know that there are people out there that would like to keep me second class and make me less than. And so what one has to feel about their own determination and see themselves and the dignity within, but yet recognize that there are people out there who would like to take that away. So it's back to, you can sometimes only change yourself and not others, but I understand what Glenn is saying, that you need that inner strength, that inner personal pride, that inner sense of dignity that keeps you going in the world. And still, you have to recognize that there's a world out there that's trying to potentially take that away from you. So it's neither nor, and it's both. So that's it.
Thanks, Stanton. Next is Greer.
Okay, no one here. No, I'm not gonna say no. I'm just gonna say most of you guys here, thanks. I know from what you've said that minorities are being treated in this country equivalent to white stats. Because if you believe that they are, my question to you would be here in this group, because I'm productive to everything that we're talking in this fallacy of, oh, vote and everything goes your way. The Democratic Party parlays things in order to get them passed by taking away things that the Republican Party not want to be a part of it. So if you think about it, in order for the Civil Rights Bill to be passed, we had to include white women with it, right? But it was supposed to be about minorities. But the only way it could be passed if white women were added as a minority. Then we get an Asian hate bill that only includes Asians. This country, due to agenda, has found monetize that. I'm talking about Black people, because that's what we're talking about today. Has found a way to monetize the existence of Black people from cradle to grave. That's not a theory. That's not a conspiracy. That is a fact. There is a system to do this. And to think it doesn't exist is lunacy. Mind you, I'm college educated. I have a very good job. I make a lot of money. But I know my family fared better than others. And I'm not stupid enough to think that because somebody didn't achieve what I did, that they did wrong. It's just that I fared better. There are laws that exist, but and a law existing versus that law being executed on my behalf is two different things. And yes, some people have a mentality of slavery and beat down so bad. I don't have a slavery mentality. I don't wear rose-colored glasses. I see this country for what it is. And this country created an agenda off it exceeded into the bounds of power and wealth off of the people that it enslaved, that they saw as less than being human beings. And that didn't go away. It still exists today. I've succeeded, but that still doesn't turn my eye away to say, hey, there's nothing wrong going on here in this country when it comes to my people. And that's not a slave mentality. That's a fact. That's it.
Thanks, Greer. Okay, so last on the list is Larry.
You know, on the issue that Nancy brought up about education, you know, when I was in high school, I didn't understand fully the system of racism that existed. So our school counselors would tell us to graduate, get your diploma, go out and get a good job. And so we did that. And after graduation, me and my friends would read the newspaper, want ads, and job sounded good. But then back in 65, we would read the ad, and then we get to the end of the want ad, and it said Negroes need not apply. Colored people need not apply. We go out looking for jobs, and we see signs on doors. We don't hire colored people. So this was all systemic, and as time progressed, the science disappeared, but the attitudes didn't. And you know, President Biden pardoned all of those marijuana federal prisoners because he realized the system is what kept them locked up. You know, the thought of having a couple of joints in your pocket for your own personal pleasure, and they're going to throw you in jail 5, 10. That's the system. That's the system. And our fight is not over yet. As white people and as Black people, we got to have a mindset to eradicate it. And sometimes the only way that can be done is people's hearts got to change. People's hearts got to change. And the heart is a terrible thing to change. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, so that was the end of the list, and I have 4 people that I marked down as not speaking this time. And so, or actually, sorry, 5 people. Well, I can't count. And those are Nora, Marva, Lynn, Marla, and Francie. Did I miss anybody that didn't speak? Okay. So I'll go in that order then. Nora.
Yeah. I think that it's amazing that we all, our country, do as well as we do, considering either suffering from the lies that we live with, or benefiting from the lies we live with. And I think we should be called the United States of mental illness. I mean, I think you've got to be mentally ill to function and survive with the lies. That's all.
Thanks, Nora. Marva?
Very interesting conversation. One or two off point, but the general group saw it as it really factual situation. I don't wear rose-colored glasses. I see America for for what it is. We have come a long way. We have a ways to go, and I recognize this. And I thank the Lord we have come far. Hopefully, He will lead us further. Thank you.
Thanks, Marva. Next, I have on the list, that list of not speakers, is Lynn.
So I must see this movie as soon as possible. And I'm also watching this week The Making of Black America with Henry Louis Gates. And that had I saw part one, had a very good historical exposition of what African Americans did after the end of the Civil War, how people did bring themselves up by their bootstraps and created colleges and schools. And the social aid and pleasure club we know about in New Orleans, they were all over the country, and congresses of people, Black people, meeting and making plans to go forward. There's also a biography of Frederick Douglass on PBS this week. Larry's point about love is crucial in our country. There's definitely not enough love in our country. There's so much selfishness. Everyone wants their welfare and the welfare of their family, and they can't have empathy for so many others. Maybe they can have empathy after a hurricane, but the day-to-day fight to have a good life with enough food to eat and a good education and a good place to live and not end up homeless. It seems like Americans don't care. I don't know how we can teach Americans to have empathy for their fellow citizens. I like the French motto, liberty, equality, fraternity. We need empathy and fraternity for our fellow Americans. And there's so many things that aren't passed, like healthcare. People didn't want to pass it because they didn't want other people to have it if they weren't rich enough to pay for it. The same thing with forgiving the debt. Oh my God, we don't want to forgive the debt of these people. They don't deserve it. I worked, and where is your empathy for young people who are the first in their families to go out and struggle to get an education? How can we teach love? That's all.
Thank you, Lynn. And Marla is the fourth person on the list, if you'd like to go.
Yeah. Wow, this was a great discussion. I just enjoyed sitting and kind of listening to everybody. But some final thoughts that I had after watching the show is the theme about humanity, also kind of what Larry and Lynn have also spoken about. And specifically, I just remember Terrence Crutcher's sister saying, about her brother who was gunned down. She said, "Nobody ever humanized my brother." And man, I think about the reclamation of humanity in all of this, all of the time. I think we as a collective don't realize that not only is it harmful to Black folks when we are not reclaiming our humanity, it's harmful to white people too. I mean, if we can't see the humanity in each other, we're all hurting all of us are hurting ourselves. And some educators I listen to and learn from also speak to how important it is to reclaim humanity. And the other thing I think about is how the speaker talked about apathy as being violent, and that if we're not consciously working to learn and unlearn things on a daily basis, no matter how small, especially as white folks, then we sit in that apathy, and that's violent. Sitting in our comfort and our comfort of apathetic unawareness and only being called when there is violence and pain. It's just simply not acceptable. And then finally, number 3, that there is power in the government to present a narrative regarding all of this. And we've seen it happen before, in a negative way with the war on drugs. But I think that it could be used for good, and that a narrative could be presented that would hopefully assist all of us in reclaiming our humanity and moving forward to be a better country. Because as he said, America can be the greatest in the world at things, but we can also be the most racist country in the world. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. So powerful show. I got to watch it again. So thanks to everybody. It was a great discussion. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Marla. And then last but not least is my mother, Francie. Would you like to make some comments?
Well, kind of following what Stanton was saying, I woke up in the middle of the night, and it's occurred to me that there's a sizable number of Americans who don't want many of us to have many freedoms and many rights right now. And I think it's pretty scary. Seems like there's a group of people who would like to take us backwards to white male supremacy. I'm concerned about that. White male heterosexual supremacy, I should say. Anyway, I appreciated everyone's comments. Thank you. It was a powerful film. I've watched it twice, and I think maybe I'll watch it a third time. That's it.
Thanks. Okay, so we will go back to the people who did speak, and you can each have a minute to wrap up your thoughts here. So I'm going to go in the order on my screen, and then the first people to speak would be Bill and Cindy.
Thanks. I was going to ask Lynn a clarifying question, but I can ask her offline. Greer talked about the monetization, and the most egregious thing, which was touched on in the movie, was private prisons. These people figure out a way to make money off of Black youth. And we all know that what happened. And so when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana, he signed draconian drug laws to feed the private prisons that were his biggest campaign.
Honey?
use.
Oh, excuse me.
So this monetization of misery are of people of color has occurred for a long time, and that's real evil. I had a friend who said people go to law school for two reasons. One group goes to make as much money as they can, and another group goes to try to make the world a better place. And I think we're kind of divided in those two camps. Unfortunately, people who want to make as much money as they can are often the winners. So I yield the rest of my time to Cindy.
I found the article a really interesting, a valuable kind of summary of once over lightly, all the really blatant, but then there's so many more, all the police shootings and neighborhood shootings. You know, a neighbor sees somebody walking in the area that's not from there. We've got to get past the resorting to violence to solve every problem. One of the major issues, I think, is how many guns are available. They're everywhere. And there are something like 6 guns for every person in this country. And somebody's got mine, I don't have one, but they're way too many. We need to deal with that as a very important aspect of this inhumanity. We're in a sad place. Dealing within our own friendship groups is important, but we need to reach out further. We have a lot of work to do. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Cindy. I don't know if everybody saw my chat notification, but my apologies. I have to get off fairly promptly today. So I am using the timer for wrap-ups. Normally we can't let those things go, but I'm just letting you guys know that I have to hold it to that today for sure. All right. So next on my list of wrap-up is Phyllis.
We use the timer for the wrap-up too, but the 1 minute timer. I had a note that there's a cost to change, which is true. And some people are not willing to pay that cost, but there's also a cost to not changing. And if we don't change in some positive, important ways in terms of equality for everyone in this country, we are on our way out. That's my opinion. Thank you very much, Michelle. This was a good conversation starter. Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next I have on my screen is Larry.
Monday is Columbus Day, only because of white pride. As if the Indians, the natives weren't here. You know, and that's been a long running dispute over that. We all know that. But I think just the concept that nobody can discover something like this except white man, you know, and it's only pride that could keep that kind of, this issue should have been settled a long time ago. Nobody can discover the moon. The moon is already there. So Columbus didn't discover America. And I think this is another slap in the face to the natives who are here. Thank you so much. I enjoyed today's program.
Thank you, Larry. On my calendar, it's Indigenous Peoples Day, so I don't know. Anyway, let's see. Next, Stanton. Oops, sorry about that.
No, I'll take a pass. Go ahead.
You all set?
Yep.
Okay. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Next is Marian. Go ahead, Marian.
I would like to thank you, Michelle, for this very, very interesting article. according to the chronological order of my notes, this could actually be a small history book. I know this man is Jeffrey Robinson is a civil rights lawyer. I don't know if he's a professor, but I want to thank you and everyone else for your comments. There was so much that could be said because I have 2.5 notes that I'm not going to go over, of course, but thank you once again. And on my calendar hanging on the kitchen wall, it says Indigenous Peoples Day this coming Monday as well.
Thanks, Marion. Louise, would you like a minute?
Sure. Actually, I just want to comment, Glenn, there is something that I just read the other day about a community of Black landowners. They've bought a piece of property, and of course, I cannot remember where. I know it's in the South, but they want to make a Black-owned community, village, town, whatever. It won't be a town for a few years, obviously, but and they say everyone is welcome, white people as well. So it's not just for Black people, but that's a good example of Black people doing it for themselves, I guess. But they have to do it away from the rest of society, because if they're in normal society, regular society, they wouldn't be able to do it. Anywho, great conversation. And I think self-education is a way to start. The more I learn, the more disgusted I am. And of course, as an educator with young children, I try to say my part and do my part. I have to say, I hide away when they do the Pledge of Allegiance, which they do every friggin' morning. So I just hide away behind a thing. Sometimes kids see me and they're like, but no one's ever really asked me. I'm waiting for them to ask me why I don't stand for the pledge. But it's never happened yet. Anyway, love you all. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Louise. Let's see, Nancy.
This was the movie was excellent, and I will recommend it to several people. I think that discussions like these, we need to have more going in the future. Great topic.
Thanks, Nancy. Glenn?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I just wish that African Americans would stop pretending that that this country is so terrible and so bad, and knowing that they benefit from being in this country. They're in a better position than their brothers and sisters in Africa. And there is no Back to Africa movement, because they know all the benefits that African Americans receive, and the African himself is coming over here receiving so many benefits from being called an African American. There's no Back to Africa movement because there is no Social Security over there. There is no what we call outlaws. There's no great constitution over there like we have to depend upon for your rights. So you just stop pretending that you think this is the worst country in the world. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Glenn. And last but not least is Greer. You get the final word here.
Great article, thought-provoking. I'm going to go back and watch the documentary again. I mean, there are some things that I just want to go back and revisit. And I don't know if you guys know that Glenn Abdullah is my uncle. And we don't agree on a lot of things. We don't. And as a family, we don't. Anyway, I'm going to say this. No one says America is the worst place to be, but America sells itself with the platitudes of greatness, yet has never lived up to those platitudes when it comes to the people who built this country, died for this country, gave blood to this country for it to be what it is today. And my skin color and that my people is a crime, and that is used against us daily in this country to this very day, then that is a problem. I can never turn my head from truth, and that is the truth. Thank you. You guys have a good weekend.
Thanks, Greer. Yeah, I also add that sentiment. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. I mean, I'm not going to add too much here. I do kind of have to go, unfortunately, but I'm glad that everybody did who was here and got the chance to watch it, got something out of it. I can't imagine anybody not getting anything out of the movie. It's just chock-a-block full of information and, stories, humanity that I think is missing a lot in our society today. For those of you who may not be on the chat or checking the chat, Marla wanted to let everybody know about the organization called the Who We Are Project.org, was apparently put in the trailer of the movie, and it's a way to get a newsletter and get involved in your own community. I guess it's a resource for people who would like to go further now that they've seen the movie or the documentary. So it's the whoweareproject.org online. Anyway, I hope that maybe the movie was or the documentary was a good first foray into a different medium for us to check out as a group here with Erace. So I think that's an encouragement for any of you who are facilitators if you'd like to have a different medium for us to check out. I would also suggest podcasts because they've got some great ones out there that are also, maybe even if it's a series, you could introduce the first one as a way for people to springboard to listen to more. So anyway, I enjoyed a different medium myself personally as well. It's going a little bit deeper dive into these things. So thank you for everybody's grace today, and I've had a good time.